Hi everyone and welcome to Sabana Discuss. In this episode, our participants will discuss and compare the end of the empire in Africa with that in Asia after 1945. To start with the debate, I'm going to give you an introduction of this interesting topic. In the mid to late of 19th century, the European powers colonized much of Africa and southeast of Asia. During the decades of imperialism, the industrializing powers of Europe viewed the African and Asian continents as reservoirs of raw materials, labor, and territory for future settlement. In most cases, however, significant development and European settlement in these colonies was sporadic. However, the colonies were exploited, sometimes brutally, for natural and labor resources, and sometimes even for military conscripts. In addition, the introduction of colonial rule through arbitrary natural boundaries where none had existed before, dividing ethnic and linguistic groups and natural features, and laying the foundation of the creation of numerous states lacking geographic, linguistic, ethnic, or political affinity. Let's begin.
Let's start. The first question is what events brought about the end of the empire in Africa and Asia?
The end of the empire in Africa came towards the end of the 50s and the early 60s, symbolized by the Premier Minister Harold Macmillan's speech in South Africa when he was his host of the Wind of Change. He says in his speech that the wind of change is blowing through the continent. This growth of national consciousness is a political fact. The speech signaled clearly that the Conservative Party, which formed his British government, had no intention to block independence for many of those territories. It had started a process of decolonization. In Asia, it was quite different. After the Japanese surrender in 1945, local nationalist movements in the former Asian colonies campaigned for independence rather than a return to European colonial rule. These independence movements often appealed to the United States government for support.
Okay, thanks for your answer. And let's go to the next question. Is what caused decolonization in Africa?
In the Second World War, it was psychological change that helped the decolonization of Africa. War changed the way people see everyday life, themselves, and the people around them. This war changed and shaped that way Africans viewed Europeans, African noticed that it was like mangled, cried, and was scarred, and when shot did like any other person. The African realized that under the skin there was no difference between him and the European. For centuries, the idea of white superiority had existed in the minds of Africans. People thought that the Europeans were insulted and incapable of being defeated. For hundreds of years, Africans had resisted European rule with little success. Africans cannot be blamed for developing the idea that Europeans seem almost invincible.
Okay, the next question is what caused decolonization in Asia?
Well, it was a largely consequence of the Japanese defeat, but it was also influenced by the previously expressed will of the interest societies. In addition, the nationalist movements, the Cold War, and the role of the UN public opinion or international support were points that declined the European colonial empires. Development of neocolonialism by the US and the USSR, the formation and the non-aligned movement and the Bandung Conference in Indonesia in 1955, birth of the Third World concept, led to this process.
Okay, decolonization was often affected by superpower competition and had a definite impact on the evolution of that competition. It also significantly changed the pattern of international relations in a more general sense. How did the creation of so many new countries alter the composition of the United Nations?
The creation of new countries altered the composition of the United Nations and political complexity of every region of the globe, because some of which occupied strategic locations, others of which possess significant natural resources, and most of which were desperately poor.
The last question is, what are the main differences between early civilizations in the Americas and in Asia?
Americas had no significant beasts of burden, therefore they had no need to invent the wheel. This limited the economic development of the Americas. Instead of using animal labor as a force multiplier, it required governments to make use of large-scale human labor, similar to the pharaohs of Egypt, but his can be hard to do if you don't have a way of keeping the masses in control.
Thanks for tuning in and see you in the next episode of Savannah Discussions. Bye.